Hey, what's up, real? Hope all is well. This is Coach Key. Today I got another special treat for you guys, man. Welcome to Real Coaching Podcast. We got one of the greatest coaches here in Miami-Dade County, probably in Florida, man. Coach Jube Joseph, man. Coach was just amazing inspiration, to the community, to the kids, and all the families. National championship in 2022 at Miami Central, undefeated season, man. Coach, do you have anything else you want to tell the people before we get started?
Well, thank you for having me. I thank you for the opportunity anytime we get to just talk about the development of the kids and just impacting South Florida football, high school culture, man. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Coach, so I got a list of questions that I want to talk to you about. First thing I want to talk about is how old were you when you fell in love with the game of football, and how did it change your life?
I fell in love with the game of football. I think I was seven or eight, third grade. I think my neighbors used to play football outside, and funny story was, I really looked up to my neighbor who was next door. He taught me basketball, football, how to ride a bike like my big brothers, and the Boys and Girls Club was like a block away from my house. And one day I saw him walking to a game, and he had the Falcons decal. So I thought that he played for the real Atlanta Falcons. And I was like, "You got a game today?" He was like, "Yeah." I said, "I'm gonna watch you on TV." And he was like, "Nah, I don't play on TV." But ultimately, my daddy took me out there, and I saw kids my age running and jumping and playing, and I wanted to do the same thing. But I think ultimately, as a kid, I was big into reading, and so like when you went to the book fair, your mom used to give you like $5 to go to the book fair, get you some books. Everybody buying like Goosebumps books and things of that nature. I was buying like Barry Sanders' biography, and things of that nature. So biography of Steve Young and things like that. So that's when I just really immersed myself into like football and knowing everything, all the ins and outs about it.
Yes, sir. So you played for Northwest Falcons Bug Club, right?
Yeah, I'm a boys
Okay.
club baby. Shout out,
Okay.
rest in peace to Coach Kenny, the realest in it.
The
I
realest,
played
man.
with Coach KC Stevens. I played with some guys, man. Thaddeus Lewis, who was a
Okay.
quarterback. He was at Duke University. I think he was a quarterback coach at Tampa Bay. I played with Tim Brown, who was at Rutgers. I played for Miami Northwestern. That park had a lot of guys. Shout out to DeMarcus Van Dyke, DVD,
Okay.
DB coach at USF. Like, so it's a lot of good alumni from Northwest Falcons Boys and Girls Club. If you play football in the late '90s, in the '90s, late '80s, '90s period, you knew if you played at that boys club, you knew what you was about.
What position did you play, Coach?
I played everything.
Okay.
Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, defensive back. Really, that's where I really got my start off was on offense. And then when I got to high school, I actually Central made me change the DB because I made an executive decision as a ninth grader.
Yes, Coach.
When they said all the receivers stand up, and
Uh-huh.
it was like 70 guys,
Uh-huh.
and I did the math. I was like, well, I'm like 5'7",
Right.
140 pounds soaking
Right.
wet. I'm probably gonna.
Right.
I'm probably gonna get about. I'm probably gonna get about like maybe one or two routes.
Uh-huh.
And so then when they said all the DBs stand up,
Yes.
it was about like 10 guys, and I was like, yo, I'm better than about 80 y'all.
Wow.
So that's when I made that executive decision. So I said, man, I'm gonna go ahead and go to defensive back from there.
And how did it go at you played at Miami Central, right?
Yeah.
And how did the culture go there? I know you coached at Miami Central, so was it similar to like how you was coaching, the coaching style and everything like that?
That me playing at Miami Central embodied who I am as a coach and who I am as a person. It was a grind. Just from everything as far as the history. Like I said, growing up, I didn't have enough money to get like big posters and get those guys. So my posters was like newspaper clippings.
Wow.
So I used to like clip out like Najee Davenport or Willis McGahee, De La. Those was my heroes. You know what I'm saying? Guys like that who did things for Miami Central, and then just being able to come into that locker room. You understand? My ninth grade year, man, I came in. It was guys like Courtney Denson, Ali Highsmith, Brian Patter. I'm looking at these guys like, oh my God, these are stars in my eyes. But now I'm actually in the same room with them, and I'm getting to get the culture of what it was. And it was a standard. I remember there was this thing where you can't be late, or you have to wear green shorts, and if you were late, then you'd have to go outside with this guy named Tutu. I think it's Roderick Stevens. He was a defensive line captain, and you had to go outside with him. And I didn't know what happened outside because when they came back from outside, they looked like it was torture. So needless to say, I didn't never go outside.
Right.
So, but I just knew the standard was the standard. It was excellence demanded of you constantly at Miami Central, and just me being around that neighborhood, me growing up in that neighborhood, and me understanding what it took. I used to be a kid in my backyard, and in the summer, if you listen quietly enough, you could hear the band practicing.
Wow.
In the air. And then I like my all my siblings graduated from Central.
So it was a no-brainer for you to go to Central.
Yeah, that was knowing for me to play for Central. You know what I'm saying? And I, it was kind of like a feeder pattern from Northwestern Falcons to
Right.
go over to Miami Central.
Okay.
And then just go from there.
Okay. And after high school football, did you get a chance to play in the collegiate level?
I actually didn't get a chance to play at the collegiate level. I went straight into. Well, I went into just went to school. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I was recruited. I was undersized.
Okay.
One of those South Florida kids that think they understand the actual business of recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that even though you're productive, if you don't match a certain height, a certain weight, a certain anything, then your recruitment is not going to go the way you think it should. And I ended up I started coaching in my third year in college by accident on purpose. And then I just fell in love with it since.
So talking about coaching in college, what school was that and what inspired you to want to coach?
Okay, well, I was a student at Florida State University.
Okay.
And I ended up coaching cut my teeth at Tallahassee Gobby. And a good friend of mine, Rebecca Schultz, she invited me to a football game. Amos P. Gobby was playing Tallahassee Lincoln. That's like Northwestern versus Central down here.
Okay.
And Gobby was getting crushed. And I was like one of these fans who's like, man, these kids suck. Your coach is terrible, And she was like, well, if they're that bad, why don't you come coach? And I was like, well, maybe I will. And then, so she got me an interview with Gobby. And lo and behold, honestly, myself and my cousin went out there, and the defensive coordinator walked in, and he thought we were so young. He thought we were players transferring in.
Right.
But that defensive coordinator said, well, where you guys from? And I was like, I'm from Miami. And he was like, oh, me too. That defensive coordinator turns out to be Brian Williams, the defensive coordinator at Jacksonville State University. So we all connected. And, that first year, man, it was a great year for Gobby. They ended up winning state championship.
And you was there coaching?
I was there, yeah.
So what position, what did they have you at coaching?
At first I started on JV, man. I cut my teeth on JV, and I was just doing everything. I didn't care. I was getting the ice, lining up the field, helping washing the uniforms.
Wow.
They said varsity meetings were at 7, JV meetings were at 12. So I was there at 7, and they was like, you ain't got to be here till 12. And I was like, I'll sit on the floor, and I just want to soak it up, learn, and that's what I did. And I got the game from there, and built my relationship from there, and just started learning. I'm a sponge, man. I continuously try to learn from be it the game or be it from life and just everything.
That's amazing. So you was there in Tallahassee.
Mm-hmm.
So once you was finished school in Tallahassee, did you come back to Miami to coach?
Yeah.
So what was the first school that you came to coach at in Miami?
I actually ended up coaching at Miami Springs.
Oh, okay.
When I got back home, and it ain't no football like South Florida football.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And yeah, you did it at the highest of the highest, but ain't no football like South Florida. The culture is different, man. Just the energy's different. Travis Powell's different.
Right.
And a coach of mine, Darryl Bethune, who's the head coach at South Broward right now, he coached us at Miami Central as well. A couple of my friends that I grew up with, like Jamal Sheffield, who's in charge of Church Mob Academy, we all convinced me to coach at Springs. We were bad at first. Like when I first got there, they were coming off an 0-10 season.
Wow.
And Coach Maul, I remember it like yesterday. Like he was like, think about it. Well, we won one game, we're in improvement. So we ain't nowhere else to go but up. So I was like, all right, let's do it. And it was fun though. It's just far as developing the kids and really getting the grassroots of things. And we were able to turn that program around from actually breaking the longest playoff drought in Dade County history.
Wow.
25 years, got them. I think we went 7-3, went to the playoffs. Sad part about it was first game of the playoffs was St. Thomas Aquinas. So that was a good run. But nonetheless, that's what happened. And then I actually ended up making my way back to Tallahassee and coaching at Tallahassee Lincoln.
Okay.
The actual rival. Ooh, right? Okay.
And
coaching with Yusef Shakir. And we were able to, make a run there too.
Okay.
And then after I did that, I'm a well-traveled guy, man. I ended up at North Marion in Ocala, Florida.
Oh wow, man, you was all over, coach.
Yeah, that was like a country town. Varsity Blues. The whole town shuts down.
Wow.
You know, there was a farm outside of the school, like right,
Wow.
literally right there.
Wow. So you coaching in these different areas,
Mhm.
in these different environments, did you have to change your coaching style because of the environment that you were in?
No, I gotta be me. I gotta organically be me, because I'm a transformational coach. I'm not a transactional coach. So ultimately, in order for me to convey the message that I'm trying to convey to you, I can't conform to the norms. I gotta be who I am, and I ain't for everybody. I'm black or white. You know what I'm saying? Either is or it ain't. Either you can or you can't. Ain't no gray area with me. I know I'm not for everybody because if I was, then I'd be phony. And I'm okay with that.
Right, right, right,
Mhm.
right. That's big, coach. So let's talk about you. How did you get back to Miami Central?
Okay, well, I was at Carroll City on that team, 2018. Well, we had an all-star staff. Shout out to Benedict Hippolyte. I've coached for a lot of great coaches, great
Uh-huh.
examples. So like I'm just a prodigy of what they've put in me. You get what I'm
That's
saying?
amazing, coach,
So
man.
like I've been in those meetings with Benedict Hippolyte. We had El Toro Wallace and Coach Joe from Chaminade. He's at Carroll City with us, and the head coach at Flomo, Coach Mike Jones. He was a wide receiver coach. And Jube Joseph was a defensive back coach. Greg Moss was at Florida State, defensive coordinator. Like we had a staff,
Right.
and it was a family. Martin Maltby, those type of guys, and I had got a call from my cousin Sabbath Joseph, who was coaching at University of Miami, and he was just like, "Man, you ready to come home?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready to come home." And I went to Central because more so, they had been on a 3-year drought. Right? They hadn't won in 3 years, and I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go to Central when they were winning because they didn't need me. They were good. But me and Coach Maul, we decided to go back home, and we always said, let's bring the hood back. Let's bring the hood back. Let's bring it back on top. And we ended up going in 2019 and we won in 19, and because they didn't win in 16, 17, and 18. So
And you got back that first year, you guys
and
won.
we got there in 19, we won.
Was you the head coach that first
No,
year?
I was the defensive coordinator.
Okay.
So we had those babies, man. Let me tell you something, man. We had those babies. When I say babies, we had to do a whole culture shift on the defense where, I'm not keen to not playing the babies. I'll play freshmen. I don't care if you can play, you can play. And I remember we had a young 14-year-old kid named Ruben Bain, and we had a young 15-year-old named Wesley Bassett. We had all these young guys that had promise, but we were like, we're willing to grow with them because they believe in what we had going on. And when we won in 2019, then the next year we won in 20, and then we won in 21, and then ultimately I became the head coach in 22. And it was a fruition for us to, culminate and do what was never been done at that school before, which is a national championship and first undefeated season since that school's been open since like playing football in like 1967 or something like that.
Wow. And coach, man, you have impacted so many families and so many lives at Miami Central.
Mm-hmm.
What was the ultimate reward for you for doing all these things? What made you feel like you were winning? What was winning to you?
Winning to me was just the transformation and characteristics of my student athletes as people. Understanding that, giving them a broader outlook in life, knowing that there's more to football, more to life than football. Football's what you do, it's not who you are. I wanted to make sure that to teach these kids, there's other things in life that you're good at. Explore those opportunities. Honestly, just teaching them the true merit of loving one another and trusting one another and understanding where you're at in life and not making excuses and being held accountable. Because ultimately, I'm teaching you how to be not only good people, but great husbands and great fathers and great community leaders and role models. When I come up with the hashtag neighborhood heroes, just letting you know, listen, you're always being watched and you always have to be an example of greatness and the standard. I used to always tell them, like, there's an 8-year-old walking around here in South Florida and thinking that, Miami Central is a standard of winning for football and high school football because ever since they've been born on this earth, Miami Central's been winning. So, you got to understand that when you wear, and I used to always say that Gucci green, and I give them the examples of or the metaphor of understanding that, there's a difference in apparel when you walk into Gucci, there's a difference in standards of excellence when you walk into the Gucci. When you get that fabric, when you get that pricing, because that's a luxury brand. It's not just a name brand; it's a luxury brand. Let's ask yourself, when's the last time you seen a commercial for a Lamborghini? You know what I'm saying? Things of that nature. And I teach them that, and I understand. That's how I meet them halfway, because these kids nowadays, these are the richest kids I've ever seen in my life. This era, where they wear all type of $1 million shoes and things of that nature. So they understand the precedence when I say this is Gucci, where you're upholding that standard and you of excellence when you put that brand on.
Man, Coach, that's amazing, man. I remember just watching all your videos go viral, man. The platform you have on social media, and I remember one of those videos, man. You telling the kid, man, there's a kid in the stand studying how you drink water.
Yeah.
Coach, when you said something like that, man, that just instantly had
because
got
I
me
was that
fired
kid.
Up. That's amazing.
I was that kid. I was that kid in the stands that watched and looked up to the Courtney Densons and the Darnell Jenkins
Coach,
of the world. So I'm coming from. I don't. Like, people are like, yo, do you write? I'm like, I don't write nothing.
Coach,
it just comes
Coach?
from the heart. I look at your eyes and see through your soul, and I'm understanding what you need to understand. Is authenticity. It's like I said, it's transformational coaching.
Coach, man, there's not a lot of coaches out here. I'm a coach myself. And you inspire me, Coach. You inspire me because I'm just was one of those kids, and just hoping that a coach like you talk to me the way that you talking. I'm watching your videos and how you talking to kid, saying that you met another kid. You asked the kid, do you want to beat? Do the kid want to play for you? Kid said he want to be lights out.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach, that did something to me, Coach.
Right.
Coach, that really did something to me, Coach. That you got kids in the Liberty City area that's really just want to play for you. That's all in these youth football parks. I'm a youth football coach as well.
Yeah.
And you have made a platform where kids want to play for Coach Jube.
Yeah.
Kids want to get touched by Coach Jube.
Yeah.
And you letting the players know, like, y'all can't touch Tua and Tyreek Hill, but these kids can touch you.
Yeah.
These kids see you at the Candy Lady. So when you said that, Coach, I'm just going back to everybody understanding the neighborhood, what you talking about.
Yeah.
Neighborhood hero.
Yeah.
Now that you at St. Thomas Aquinas, do you think it changes? Do you think the language changes because now you don't get those type of kids in the community that you had? So do you think now you got to change a little bit to reach these kids now that you're at now in St. Thomas?
I mean, I think you got to look at the demographic of, nonetheless, be it affluent or not affluent, everybody's got situations and issues in their lives that they have to deal with, and everybody's got to grow up. I think that ultimately people might look at the setting and say, oh, you got it made. But ultimately, you don't, until you pull back the curtains, you don't understand what everybody's actually intricately dealing with. Yeah, oh man, yeah, you got an Audi. Yeah, I do. Yeah, but you ever see how much the maintenance costs? You know what I'm saying? So everybody's got their problems. You know what I'm saying? So it's just really facilitating and assessing what needs to be helped, what needs to be serviced, and how can you implement yourself into that situation and be an asset to it.
Right, Coach, that's big, man. Coaching at Miami Central, all the championships that you won, all the games that you won, that national championship year, what was one of the biggest challenges that you went through that year that you had to overcome to say, okay, now we're ready to go?
I think it was a couple of challenges that we faced. One was actually, I would say the media. And when I say the media, it was, there's different polls and for the Mythical National Championship, be it Max Preps, be it SB Live, be it NationalHighSchoolFootball.com. And, everybody uses the Max Preps poll, but ultimately it's like 6 different polls. And we knew that if we did what we were supposed to do to win the outright national championship, then, we would be good. But ultimately, powers that be, in one of those polls, the Max Preps poll specifically, they kind of, I would say, slighted the kids in regard and gave it to a one-loss team, in a sense where actually we were the only undefeated team in the top 5. And for me, I was just like, well, if what was going on is we were actually challenging the fabric of America. And when I say challenging the fabric of America, it's like, here you got this little public school, inner city public school with no resources and no funding, and just kids from around the way that actually came and slayed Goliath on time and time again. And what we're doing is we're challenging not only just the football America, but financial America, because you have these private schools that are allotted hundreds of thousands of dollars to field these teams, millions actually, when it comes to teams like IMG. And you have this public school with little to nothing, and they're coming in with vigor and tough coaching and things of that nature, and they're winning. And now if we just give these guys this national championship, we're not even give because they earned it. It's like, well, wait, what does that say about the structure and the dynamic that we have created in high school football about private schools and things like that? So when that happened, we kind of knew, if as long as one of the polls that are in the actual consensus poll, because consensus means that multiple polls as well, one of them vote us number one, then all we needed was one of the polls to vote us number one, and we were national champs.
Wow. And that's what happened.
And that's what happened. I had to talk to my kids, and I had to explain, because I saw it coming. Where I was like, yo, the Max Preps might slide us, but, you still have all the other polls as well. And I had to explain to kids, you don't know you're making history while you're making history. You don't know you're making history while you're making history. And understand that, nobody can take this away from you because you've done it. Ultimately, that's what it is. People looked at me and said, your first game as a head coach, you're willing to take on IMG? Yeah. I'm willing to take on IMG. Yeah, well, why not? Because that's just the type of confidence and I have in my kids and I have in my coaches and I had in our administration like that. Ultimately, that's what it was. Some people they say it's arrogant. Some people say it's cocky. Listen, I'm not scared because I'm super prepared.
I love it.
And if my confidence makes you feel uncomfortable in this room, you might want to get out.
I love it. And Coach, what I like about you is you show how authentic you are. You're not one of them type of guys that you got to put on the suit. You got to change your voice to get your point across, to impact kids, to impact people across the world. You open my eyes. Right. Where, like, you don't have to put on a facade. You can just be you, and you can still impact kids across the world. Let's talk about you guys beating IMG. Mm-hmm. After that win, did it then click like, wow, like, we the best of the best. We the best in the world. We really.
Nah, actually, and this is the thing about Dade County football. Any given week, you can get your head knocked off. And so right after we beat IMG, the very next week, we had to play a very strong Booker T team. And I told the team, I'm like, I'm more afraid of Booker T than I am of IMG. And they were like, why? I said, because y'all can't punk them. They're from the hood, too. So y'all can't say, oh, we from the hood, so we going to beat y'all. No, because if you say we from the hood, they're going to be like, we next door. Matter of fact, we cousins. What's up? So that way, when I had to really lock them in and I had to bring them back to reality where it's like, hey, these guys are ready to whoop your behind and make a name off you. So I really had to explain to them, listen, yeah, that win with IMG, we can't read that. That's done with. We got to focus on Booker T next. And God is my witness. That was a hard game.
Wow.
Coach, shout out to Coach Ice and his staff, Tori and Bean. Man, they gave us a run for our money that game.
So you coaching in Miami, at Miami Central. What do you think? What school gave you the biggest challenge of coaching?
Oh, ultimately, I mean, you always say all the inner city schools, man. Just period. Of course, the Northwestern ones are always those are like the serious ones.
And how does it feel coaching in that atmosphere? The West versus Central every year. That's probably one of the biggest game ever in South Florida. You got all the neighborhoods coming together. You got the community coming together. Everybody rooting for you. You can walk wherever you're going. They see you at the gas station. Hey, coach, y'all going to win tonight, right? You got this. How did that make you feel as a coach knowing that you got the support from the community behind you?
I mean, it is what it is. I played in that game. You understand what's at stake. That's a non-negotiable game. When you sign up to be a part of Miami Central, you know that game is circled on the calendar. They don't like us. We didn't like them. And that's just what it was. And you understood what was at stake. You understood that's what you're judged by. You're not judged by what you do against certain schools in the area. You're judged by what you do against that school.
And, Coach, man, you know by all your game time speeches, man. What was one of those speeches that you can remember, Miami Central Northwestern game? What are some speeches that you did to just get them kids fired up and ready to go?
I'd say, I don't even like to use the word viral, but Coach Marler says this all the time, like, yo, you always did this. It's just that somebody just so happened to put a camera on you. And so, like, what we did was to teach the kids public speaking. We used to do this when I was at Central, where, like, Ali Highsmith would stand up and Marcus Daniels would stand up and Courtney Denson would stand up and they would speak to the team. And then the coaches would come and they'd speak to the team. But I always thought that was good because it taught young men how to speak publicly to their brothers. You know, it just don't have to be about the coaches because it's about to be with the kids. And so I used to have that with the defense. When we go into the room and I'd pick 3 captains to speak to the defense that day for the game. And we did that all season. It's just this game, I have a friend of mine, Prime. Shout out to Prime. He's Theo Vision. He's a photographer, videographer, and he's like, "Yo, let me come around and do my thing." I'm like, "All right." I just thought he was gonna take pictures, and then I came in and I came and I spoke. My captain spoke, and then I came in and I spoke, and I just was telling them, at the end of the day, in order to get something you never got, you got to do something you never did, and understand that what's at stake, and things of that nature. And I call and response, just talking to the kids and talking through the kids. And I had no idea he was recording it. And so when we get to the stadium, just Manny Diaz was the head coach at UM at the time, and he's like, and him and Stephen Fields, who's at UM too, he's like, "Yo, man, I love that speech." And I'm like, "What you talking about?" And he's like, "Oh, you don't know?" And I'm like, "No," because I guess on our way to the stadium, Prime had already just
Posted.
uploaded it.
Yes.
And so I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like because nobody's ever there. I forgot he was there. And after that, it was just took off by itself. So
What speech was that?
I can't recall. All I know is I was saying something to the nature was like, "Oh, you're playing 6 freshmen. You're crazy." They're saying that you're crazy because you're playing 6 freshmen. That was Ruben Bain. That was their freshman year, and that's when I decided to play the freshmen over the seniors. And I went to, and they said, "Man, he's gonna get fired because he's." But I said, in order to get something you never got, you gotta do something you never did.
Oh wow.
You know what I'm saying?
That's big time, coach. Another one that just stood out to me, man. Watching your videos, I think you told one kid to stand by the door.
Oh yeah.
You told the other kid to stand, I think, like 10 yards behind him.
Yeah.
You said whoever made it to this door gonna get $100. And the kid behind him say, "But that ain't fair."
That ain't fair.
You told that kid, "But life ain't fair."
Right.
There's gonna be times and situations in life you're gonna be behind somebody. Is that gonna stop you from getting you what you want?
Right.
Coach, just the things that how do you come up with those things, man?
Man, it's honestly just life and just reading and just being a student of life, a student of everybody. As you can see, I'm a sponge, man. I sit there and I just learn from everything, all the experiences, and I just try to see if I can transform those things into lessons for the kids, be it good or bad. My kids, I like to say I do intrapersonal teaching, where as I'm teaching, let's say a defensive scheme, I'm trying to teach to their capacity, not their capability. I want them to understand and internalize, not memorize. And so a lot of times, self-disclosure is one of my best things, where if I'm teaching something and I'm like, "Story time," and they're like, "Oh yeah, story time." So then I'll tell them like a story about, either a positive story or a negative story. Either way, it's a learned lesson. And sometimes I like to do negative stories because I want them to understand that coach is human. Coach mess up. Coach ain't perfect. Nobody's perfect. You're not perfect. You gon' mess up. It ain't if, it's when. But it's about what's the reactionary plan of fixing the mess up? What's the corrective behavior? Don't say sorry. Sorry, that's words. What's sorry without correction? And so that's when they kind of understand where I'm coming from when I speak to them.
And coach, as you talk to these kids, do you see it in your eyes how it impacted them and saying, "Wow, that really did just impact this kid"?
Yeah, I can see that. Some take longer than others. Some won't get it now. Some will get it later.
Okay.
That's just the type of coach that I am, and I understand that. The message and the tone and, the medium that I'm sending my message, some might get it instantly, but some it might be a delay, and then it might take a couple mistakes and missteps before they come back to you and say, "Yeah, coach, I get it now. I didn't understand it before."
That's real.
And some may never get it. Some may look at me as if, I'm the worst of the worst. But as long as I know my intentions were pure, and I know what I was guiding you to, then I'm good with that.
So, coach, let's talk about a time. We know that you've done a lot of impactful things on the football field.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that you've done to impact the kid life outside of football?
I mean, honestly, man, when you sign up for this job, football's the least part of your day. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of like okay. You got so many. That job is from, shoot, 24/7. It don't stop.
You don't stop.
It don't stop. So just period, because everybody's got different situations, and especially if you're a coach, you can't just say, oh, I stopped coaching you once I left the field. Like, that's not gonna happen. Especially in those in those areas, as far as the inner city, kids have a lot of things that they deal with when they go home, if they go home. And so it's up to you to be able to, understand, what they're dealing with and how to approach it, so they can, ultimately be the best that they can be. Sometimes, let's say, for instance, a kid is not, doing too well in the classroom. You may think that, this kid just doesn't like school, and maybe the kid didn't eat that day. It's kind of hard to focus on algebra if my stomach is growling, or maybe the kid didn't sleep that night. It's kind of hard to focus on Edgar Allan Poe if the police was at the house yesterday because my daddy and my mama got into it and they threatened to take me and my sisters to my grandma's house, and I ain't get to lay down till 4:00 in the morning. But I got this lady at 7:00 in the morning talking about I got a pop quiz on Shakespeare. You don't know what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with a lot. And then I got to go to practice at 3:00, and I got this fat black man blowing a whistle as hot as hell, and he telling me to run. I got a lot on my mind right now.
So let me tell you this, Coach. And I'm pretty sure you've dealt with a situation like that. How do you deal with that? What are some things you do just to reprogram that kid and get him back focused, going where he need to be?
Ultimately, again, it's just a transformational thing. I, for one, I like one-on-one conversations and taking them to just making them see that it's a very personal relationship. See, people know the kids don't care about what you know. They want to know that you care. And a lot of times, like, people gotta ask themselves, because I know I got villain stories where guys are like, Coach Jube's crazy, he yells a lot, this, that, and the third. But then you gotta ask yourself, so why does everybody want to play for me? Why do these kids take to me? Because they understand that I actually love and I actually care about them. And I actually sit there and I want to get to know them. And I want to understand what's gonna make them tick, and how can I help them be a better version of themselves. I used to have this saying, I'm like, you're already a Benz. I just want to put some rims on you,
That's major, Coach. So let's talk about let's take away the whistle. Let's take away football.
Mm-hmm.
Will Coach Jube be who Coach Jube is outside of football? Who will Coach Jube be outside of football? Who is Coach Jube?
It's Jube Joseph, just without the coach. The coach is the football part. Jube Joseph. Like I said, who I am as a person is who I am as a coach. I'm not. I ain't no phony in me. It is what it is. I'm always this person I'm honest. I'm always forthcoming, and ultimately, like, I care. And that's just me in a nutshell. Now, I know that I move with intention, and I move with discernment, and I ask God to order my steps when it comes to impacting these kids. And ultimately, that's just really what I strive to do. When I first started, I thought it was about football, but it's not. It ain't got nothing to do with football at all. It's football is the vessel.
Mm-hmm.
Winning is a byproduct of impact, and the impact that you have on these kids, man. I used to take them to church, and then on a bi-weekly, not a bi-weekly, but we'd go to church often, and I'd let them, come together as a team and brotherhood, teaching them those things, because those are elements of manhood that you need.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? Those are elements of manhood that you need, as society right now, as they're phasing out the masculine part of the household. They're phasing it out. So we have to be the substitute where you got to tell them, like, yo, sometimes there won't be no room for an excuse. You can't give me an excuse, because one day you're going to have a wife and you're going to be feeling mad. You're going to say, man, my boss tripping, man. I hate him, man. And she's going to say, the light bill due. And you're going to say, yeah, but they cut my hours and that. She's going to say, the light bill due. And they're going to say, yeah, but my truck broke down. Baby, I said the light bill due.
That's real, Coach.
The light bill due.
That's real, Coach.
What you telling me? And that happens in football. Like, Coach, man, my ankle hurt. It's third down. Yeah, Coach, but I can't. I said it's third down. Coach, man, but the sun was in my eye, and I said it's third down. What's understood ain't got to be explained, baby. What's understood ain't got to be explained. Shut up and get it done.
Yes, Coach.
As a man, We got to understand that. Shut up and get it done.
Find a way.
Because if you don't get it done, I'm going to find someone else to get it done.
Find a way.
I said the light bill due. Oh, don't pay it. Mr. Charles going to go pay it. Now you mad. All right.
That's real, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, my high school coach was Earl Sims. I don't even know Earl Sims, Gulliver Prep.
Uh-huh.
Man, I remember one day in school, Coach Sims see me in the hallway. I said, Coach, man, I don't feel like going to practice. What? I said, Coach, I just don't feel like going to practice today. Coach Sims took me to the side and say, you don't feel like it? What happens when you have a family?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to tell your wife you don't feel like going to work?
Yeah.
Are you going to look your kids in the eyes and say you don't feel like paying the bills today so they don't got nowhere to stay?
Yeah.
Man, that changed my life.
Yeah.
When that man told me you don't feel like it, how you feel is not always the right way to do things.
Right.
Just because you feel a certain way, that doesn't mean it's the right way to do something because you feel like it.
Right.
Get out your feelings. And
That's
Coach,
right.
and you remind me of that, Coach. Coach,
That's
you
right.
remind me of all the things that you use, the language that you speak.
Because in football, let me tell you something, man. Football, sport, period, go hand in hand with life. I'm an adult, and I still fall back on the trainings that I had when I was in high school to play football because you need that. The preparation for adverse situations. Because we all know as adults, adversity's coming.
Yes, sir.
It's around the corner. If everything's going smooth, eventually something's going to happen. So you just got to prepare yourself for it and have a plan for it and go from there.
Yes, Coach. Coach, let's talk about, okay, you're a football coach, but what is another role that you have inside the school when you was at Miami Central? What was another role that you do inside the school? Did you teach? Did you do something?
Yeah, I actually taught. Because I'm a certified teacher. I have a master's degree in educational leadership, bachelor's in English. So I was a teacher. And for them, but at Miami Central, they gave me roles where I had to free up my schedule because ultimately I had a lot of football responsibilities, and not just football responsibilities as far as recruitment and scouts, things of that nature, but also, man, I got kids, man. I got 65 of them boys. I got to make sure they on point. My boy, I got to make sure they come to school on time. I got to make sure they ain't playing around in the hallways. I got to make sure, and one of my kids know, man, Coach Jube going to pop up at that class. Coach Jube going to pop up at that class. Coach Jube going to open up that folder and see what work you been doing. I'm that type of coach. You know what I'm saying? I'm that type of coach. I tell my kids, I ain't got no life. I ain't got no life. I'm you my life. So guess what? Y'all do your Instagram, your spam page. That little light skinned little girl at the gas station pic that you thought you was following you. Hi, it's Coach. So I know everything you're posting and all the things of that nature. And my kids know that.
That's real, Coach, man. We need more coaches like you in the world. So let's talk about Miami Central. Okay, that's over. How did you find your way to St. Thomas? I know that a bunch of schools in America would take
Yeah.
Coach Jube. I mean, I'm pretty sure when you was ready to go, whatever happened, so many schools were calling you like, I want Coach Jube at my school.
Yeah.
What made you choose St. Thomas Aquinas?
Yeah, that was a real surreal process, man. Cause like, I made a joke with my boy. I'm like, man, this feels like I'm getting recruited. Like I got recruiting visits, and I said I'm about to drop a top 8 on Instagram with the graphics of what school I might go to. I was just playing around, but ultimately, man, it just goes off relationships. People don't know, man. I got a great relationship with Coach Harriet. He's one of my boys. You know what I'm saying? I don't have a lot of friends in this industry. I mean, when you're successful like me and you
You
talk
ain't got no
the talk.
haters, you ain't popping.
Right. So, but he's one of those guys that we kind of like keep in touch. And, one of those things where, he reached out and he thought it would be a good look, a good fit. First thing I said was, can I be me? Because if I can't be me, I don't want to do this. And he's like, bro, and I was like, you know me, you know how I am. And he's like, yeah, I got you. And then, I set it up and I went out there and we saw it. And I loved it. I fell in love with the culture, fell in love with the kids, fell in love with the opportunity, and, just seeing what could happen, and, it was monumental, though. I think it shook up high school football across the nation when that decision came out in regards to just two. Because honestly, it's a great example for kids to see that two powerful men can come together.
Don't have to be a title. Everybody chasing titles now. Everybody want to be the head man.
Yeah.
So like, you don't need titles to do what you need to do to get
done.
done.
I'm a servant, man. I'm a servant. And it just shows that to the kids as well. Like, wow, You guys are willing because you don't think like Harriet. You have to think about it, he's a captain of his ship. Why would a captain of his ship invite another captain to come in his ship?
Because it's bigger than you guys.
Yeah, it's bigger, man. And just through conversation alone with him and just us talking. And we always talk like, people think me and you don't like each other. Because he's more classical, I'm more hip hop, We're just yin and yang, but it works.
You need a balance.
It works.
At home,
works.
man, house, you need a balance.
It works, man. And he's a great guy. Tremendous individual. Wow.
And I know you probably got a lot of backlash because of this. And I know it's normal.
Yeah.
It's normal that everyone's not going to respect your decision. Everyone's not going to know the vision that God put in your eyes. Mm-hmm. Everyone's not going to see the vision as you. How was you able to channel that, knowing that you got some people, oh, man, why would he go over there? Oh, man, he talking no free rings. He just going over there to get a free ring. How did you channel that?
Here's the thing, right? I'm a servant for the kids in the community, period. So for me, it ain't about rings. Like I said, winning is a byproduct of impact. I don't move for people. I don't move for the general public. They have no bearing on my decision making or the steps that are ordered for me. It don't faze me. Ultimately, everybody's just looking for a conversation to have at the barbershop. And at the end of the day, I think my purpose is a little bit more higher in prestige than your conversations at the barbershop or your conversations in these chat rooms and things of that nature. I think that, the moves that I make for myself and my family and for my purpose are for mine, not yours. You do what you got to do for you. I'm going to do what I got to do for me. And I would say we'll end up at the finish line, but I'm not racing you.
Coach, that's real, man. This podcast is called Real Coaching Podcast. Mm-hmm. I named it Real Coaching Podcast because somebody was a real coach in my life. Somebody impacted my life, and I didn't have mom and dad. Yeah. All I had was my grandma. Mom was in prison, on drugs. I never met my dad. I don't even know his name. Took a coach like you to come in my life and change my life forever. Mm. When I mentioned real coaching, a lot of guys got offended. Oh, you think you're a real coach? What about me? I'm not a real... That's not the memo. What does real coaching mean to you, Coach?
I mean, I think it's the essence of what this podcast is what's the impact? That's real coaching. Real coaching is what's the impact that you had on the child, on an individual. You get what I'm saying? Like and it's not just when you're a child. Like what's the impact that you have on people? I've got real coaching from the guys that I've worked for. I've got Yusef Shakir, who coaches at the Florida Gators. He's my head coach at Tallahassee Lincoln. I could call him whenever I need to for advice. That's real coaching. He's not coaching me on a back pedal. You know what I'm saying? But he is coaching me on how to handle certain situations, how to approach certain situations, how to because at the end of the day, we all still need that. If you didn't need real coaching, everybody needs that. Every Sunday, you go see the ultimate coach. You go to church. You need some coaching to get you coaching through the week. Everybody needs it. Because sometimes you can't, listen, ultimately, I don't care if you fill up your tank on Monday. Do enough driving. By Friday, you got to go back to that gas station to fill up again. Your car needs to get coached. Amen. You need to get coached. We need to get coached. Your wife needs to get, everybody needs to get coached. Everybody's going to a well to get something.
Amen. But a lot of people think real coaching is about winning. If you're not winning football games, you suck as a coach.
I didn't even say anything about sports when I said coaching.
I agree.
This is what tells me that people are so lost when it comes to what we're trying to do. Let's keep the main thing the main thing.
Coach, you've won so many games in life, so many games on the football field, a national champion, a state champion, undefeated. Was that the reason how you impacted the kids, or how did you really impact those kids, and how did those kids feel your impact?
The national championship, the undefeated, that is stuff that we did. That's not who we were. We were a family. Those are things those championship rings get old. They're going to lose them in 30 years. What is that? When you die, when you're born, you have a date, then there's a dash, then there's death. What did you do in the dash? What is it? What was your bearing? What have you done? Because when you die, God says, well done. Well, did you do it? Did you do it? He's not going to say, hey, 300 game wins. Yep, get him. Hey, he beat the West 6 times. Get him in there. No. What have you done to be an impact, to be a game changer? When I say game changer, life changer. What have you, and that's what we talking about here. It ain't about, oh, man, Jube and these speeches and da-da-da-da-da. Listen, bro, and I know me, and I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I said, he was a former player of mine, and we were talking about just getting it. And when I say getting it, it's like when I got let go, for like 10 seconds, I thought my phone was going to blow up with like former players. Just like, yo, coach, I can't believe this, yo. But then I realized, I told him, I said, I've realized that that's not going to happen. And he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm not that type of coach. And he was like, why do you say that? I said, I coach like how my dad fathered. I said, I didn't understand the impact my dad had in my life until I left his house. And then I realized, and I called him when I was in college, I was like, yo, man, it was a random day. I'm like, I just want to say sorry and thank you. I didn't know you did all this. I didn't even know it until I had to buy my own dish detergent. I had to pay my own insurance. I had to pay my own rent. And I'm like, yo, how you did this with 5 kids? Whoa, you're a superhero. But I didn't get it. But so I said that to say this. If I coach 1,000 kids, right, and the way I coach, 100 is going to get it. They're going to get like, oh, man, thank you. The 900, they might say, coach was, I don't even mess with coach. But I guarantee you, if you have to fight or if you have a contest of competition, that 100 that got what I was saying, that understood, that embraced it, would murder the other 900. And I'm not saying it in the sense of like battling and fighting. What I'm saying in the sense of it is I take the road less traveled when it comes to mentoring kids. And sometimes you have to understand that the message and the tone and the reason I am how I am with you is because I see a greater good in you. Some people might not take that, especially in today's society where they're used to getting rubbed on their back and they're saying, hey, everything's going to be okay. I'm going to tell you, no, it's not. No, it's not. If you keep doing what you're doing, it's not going to be okay. No, why don't you tell me that? Why don't you make me feel better? Because you're heading down the wrong track. And I'm going to keep telling you that. And I know popular opinion is I'm supposed to tell you what you want to hear. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm like medicine, okay? It's nasty, but you need me to get better.
Amen. Amen. So, Coach, last thing I want to talk about, you had to part ways with Miami Central.
Mm-hmm.
You had to do what you had to do.
Mm-hmm.
I know it was a bittersweet moment because you've laid your legacy on the line. How did it feel knowing that you let that legacy on the line? And what are your plans for the future?
So, rephrase that question
So
again.
I said, I know it was a bittersweet moment of you leaving Miami Central. I know that you left a legacy there. You left something better than you found it.
Right.
For sure, you left it better than you found it.
Right.
And what are your plans for the future?
Ultimately, it was bittersweet because, man, I love those kids, man. I love those babies. Those are my babies right there. They had just went through something traumatic, and I wanted to see them through because we had unfinished business. But that was probably like the worst part of it was the kids. Understanding that they had, ultimately you're the patriarch, so you have a duty of protection, and I always want to protect them. But what's next for me is honestly just walking this journey, taking these steps at this new setting, new opportunity, through God's grace, and still being able to serve in the capacity that I can be able to serve in. I've been there for a while so far. It's just a great opportunity. It's a different setting. It shows me in a different light. Some people may look, and then also being a good example to kids in the inner city to see that, hey, we can survive over here too. It's not always us against the world. There's always when there's an opportunity nearby, you can take it to take steps to where you're trying to go. So I hope this move right here serves as an example and serves as an ambassador from both worlds and being able to see. And honestly, like I said, and even with head coach Harriet, showing people in this profession that two powerful men can come together for the greater good of not just the sport, but impacting the kids and their journeys on and off the football field.
Amen. Amen. Before we leave right now, coach, there may be a coach, there may be a player, battling something right now. Maybe battling a challenge right now, and they don't know how to get through this. They don't know how to get through this challenge. What are some encouraging things you can tell people? Because I'm pretty sure you've been through the fire.
Right.
You've been on the other side. Right. You know what it feels like when your back is against the wall.
Uh-huh.
What can you tell somebody right now to get their back off that wall?
I go back on something that I've always relied on since a kid. God won't take you through hell unless He's gonna bring you to heaven. That's something that I rely on a lot. And then also it's just the adage of you're not going to hell, you're going through it. So that means that there's an end point. Just got to weather the storm. Adversity builds character and it reveals who you really are. And know, trust and believe that, if your steps are ordered and you have faith, you'll get through any possible opportunity or any plausible obstacle that's in your way. Like I said, it's not about if adversity hits, it's about when, and just training yourself to have the mental fortitude to get through it. The brain is a muscle. You got to train yourself for these situations. Just like we sit up here, we train kids' bodies in the spring to lift weights and not be injured and things of that nature, because that's you're coaching the body. But we also forget we have to coach the mind. We have to coach the spirit. We got to, because you're coaching the body because spring football is coming and you're going to be pounding yourselves. So that's why we're getting you stronger. Well, if we know adverse situations going to happen in life and in the game, why aren't we coaching our brains? Why aren't we coaching our spirits? Why aren't we reading books to feed our minds and listening to music that's going to feed our minds? And honestly, like I said, going to church is coaching the spirit to get ready for those adverse situations that are going to happen. That's not being a negative person. I always joke with my kids, and they're like, "Coach, you like Rod Wave?" I was like, "No." And they're like, "Why not?" I said, he's sad. I'm not sad. I'm happy. I'm happy with myself. Not saying that he makes some bad music. I'm pretty sure he makes great music. But I also believe that energy is transferable. And so you are what the tongue is very powerful. And as of recently started making some better,
right,
livelier music. But at that time in the beginning, it was like, and I try to tell kids, listen, you got to train yourself. So if you speak in greatness, it's going to come back to you. If you speak negative, it's going to come back to you. So coach yourself through your adverse times.
Amen.
Talk yourself through it.
Amen.
And that's what I can say to him.
Amen. That's amazing. Amen. As we wrap this show up, I just want to say thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. Real Coaching Podcast. Special guest, Coach Jube, Joseph, one of the best to ever do it, man. Coach, I really appreciate you, man. It's an honor just to have you sit in front of me today, man.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. It's a real good thing. Just anytime it's an opportunity to discuss development, discuss the coaching culture, because this is a missing voice in this game. And I wish many blessings to you and your platform, and I appreciate you for having me.
Appreciate you, Coach. Hey, man, thank you guys so much. Real Coaching. Appreciate you, Coach.
Appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir.